Page 3, Praise to Shakyamuni Buddha. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O Supreme amongst humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who were wise then I prostrate. With pure bodies, forms supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, flame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the 3 worlds are not, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Saviour having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one gone to thusness I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime reality, to the Dharma that pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all 3 ever devout homage. To all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms atoms in all aspects, with supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. Page 15, The Heart of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. I prostrate to the Arya Triple Gem. Thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagawan was dwelling on massive Vulture's Mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagawan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perfection. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, and beheld those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element and so on up to and including no mind element, and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment. Bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment, in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as the truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Tayata gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage. It is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharadvatiputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. Page 25. O Sashipurki Jukshin Mitok Trop Rirabling Shi Nidegen Padi Zange Shing Tu Mite Ulwa Yidra Kunam Dak Ching La Chupa Shok Jetsun Lama Dampa Kinam Kichu Kukala Ken Se Chin Jigne Jita Sampe Duche Sinama Lazab Gechuki Chapabab So Vidama Guru Ratna Mandala Niryatayami Churan Saki Chunam La Cheng Chu Badu Dagi Chijun Jibe Sonam Je Dola Penje Sanje Dobara Sanje Jodan Soji Shonam La Chanjo Bado Dani Jas Dagi Chijun Jibe Sonam Je Dola Penje Sanje Dobara Sanje Jodan Soji Shonam La Chanjo Bado Dani Jas Dagi Chijun Jibe Sonam Je Sanje Dobara Sho Sanje Chodan Soji Chonam La Chanju Bada Dani Jasu Dage Chujin Jive Sonam Ji Dola Penji Sanje Dobara Sho
Hangada de Nizame, Dawa the Jabawani, the Mission, the Godandela, Chazel. Tonya Jason and Javan, Jason, the Janaban, the Jazana, so other those in the Lubush. Pandanza Lamara Mojan, the Viju Rememendation, Gadija Sunday was on to you order this. Changes in Joramboje, Majevana, Giovanni Bamaya, whenever they were issued. Oh, that good long from this job to us.
Okay, so we'll do a motivation meditation to start off with.
Oh, that go.
Now rejoice.
That turns Mongol legacy, Kalekade. Ta just comes Jamna war. Ujum come the Ultur Tangio Taga Simsha. Ni Upa Tangiva Tiga Simsha this Kamakashi Chikomja. The Tanga Jagmare, Tanga Jamna, Lagaravic Kalekaving. Ukora Hakovashi, Utan Tangiora. Ukora could you do the candidate to the part to candidate to the part, candidate to the Shiva Chena Ningasu, Yasu Samba to Naming, so same young chua, Chile young to it. And young.
So, everybody's been busy today, working and so forth. So, it's good if we can do some practice to settle the mind. So, what we can do is do a long breathing exercise. So, do a long breath in, be aware of the breath. Then just be aware of the mind and then breathe out and be aware of the breath and so forth. Do that. So what you're doing is just being aware or recognizing your breath and recognizing mind. And then this should help to settle the mind or bring the distraction out, bring any unsettled or agitation and just bring the mind in.
아야, 다 먼저 들어봐. 제가 낭배 중로다 심기고 야좀 뭐 쉬고라. 다 쉐와 야좀 뭐 쉬고라네. 대신 수두잖아. 참마 임바당 참마만 임바 대신 되나라. 수두로 요레스.
So within Buddhism, mind is very important. Mind is like main or very important aspect of it. And when you look at these mind or these consciousnesses, it can be divided into two: prime consciousness and non-prime consciousness.
당도 참마 기승 로차우체 와. 어떻게 참마 많이 봐대. 진이 여와체 다 예외나는 로들. 참마 진이데 참마 많이 배 진이. 사도 밀로 많이 배리 과체. 진이체 여와들라. 마샤이와 제시 제시 2주 나만이와 템좀 록시 승하시 다 제시 진이다 기진 독생도 베리바 디제 다 예외 나올리데라.
So when we look first at non-prime cognizers and the definition of that, that's a knower that is not newly incontrovertible. So sorry, we covered off prime cognizers already, so we're looking at non-prime cognizers now. And then secondly, when you divide non-prime cognizers, there are 5. The subsequent cognizers correctly assuming consciousness, awareness to which an object appears but is not ascertained, doubting consciousness, and wrong consciousness. Sorry, page 32, it's chapter 3, non-prime cognizers. And then when we look at the definition of a subsequent cognizer, the first of the divisions, it's a knower which realizes what has already been realized.
다들 도생도 베리고 제시로 하던다 예와시그 유전 야스니디 세시직 지나야고요. 도생베 통양야도 와서 당한서 와 말 참망함에 도생바디 디 뉴버디 마냥바체지 양자 마 뮤튜니 또 드려야 되시고요. 말그 독신도 왔으디 참망함에 독베 뉴베 양자 치마도 마 유튜지 로도야 돼. 베나가서 똑바로서 무슨을 샤샤비나 아니 나중에 퍼버디 톰바다가 디나마 계정이 숨쉬가 두든지네 드네 라투다 계정이 숨쉬가 두네라 그 뉴버디 요마로 똑바로 샤샤비나 네 먼저 간장질에 템바 제로다 다래 또 당부 참마치 드네 똑바치 드네야 가제가 제시치 드네마 이주치 한 더부터스 라투 유도야 되더라 뭐 똑바디 데모멘도 아주 제로다 제단 참망하면 뉴베도 니워드 똑바스티 다 제시 돈다디 코나다 디고.
So before we go into the divisions, if we look at what the subsequent cognizer is, well, as it said, it's a knower which realizes that which has already been realized. So through the previous realization, it's able to apprehend or realize its object. So it's based on, it doesn't realize it under its own power. It realizes based on the power of a previous valid prime cognizer, right? So it comes after having previously realized the object. So if we look at a direct perceiver, so the eye consciousness or perception of this cup, so the first moment's a prime cognizer, then every subsequent moment becomes the subsequent cognizer, second, third, fourth moment, and so forth. Now with a conceptual consciousness, it's the same. The first moment of realizing something may be like a prime cognizer, but then after that, as long as one doesn't forget it, every subsequent moment is a subsequent cognizer. But with this conceptual stuff, and memory, it's not always that reliable. Like in the beginning, it might be a prime cognizer, then a subsequent cognizer, but then later it might become doubt, and then or something like that, right? Or you might forget the object. So it's not stable, these conceptual cognizers. But this prime cognizer the subsequent cognizer is based on having the power of a previous prime cognizer having realized the object.
다들라이나 무슨 제시다 똑바 제시
무슨 제시 and 똑바. So if you divide it, then there's later. So then there's 3, right? This is also on page 32 near the bottom. Directly perceiving subsequent cognizers, conceptual subsequent cognizers, and subsequent cognizers that are neither of the two.
다 당보 무슨 제시에서도 다들 한서 배친시 되셔도 배나 당보 문주왕 계정이와 돼. 당 원부집에 가도 원부집이 미시지어와 이게 계정이와 되셔다. 그거 무슨으로 왔다. 그 가도 통되고 가도 또그 여러 무슨 되와. 당 원부 또고 당 상물에 퍼봤더니 다음 그와 전에 돈이 계정 당보대 참마체 계정이와 돼 제시자로.
So the example of the first would be, say, the second moment of an eye consciousness apprehending blue. Right? This is, of course, a subsequent cognizer, and it's also direct subsequent cognizers. So, and this applies to any object. It could be the second moment of eye consciousness perceiving cup, of perceiving table, and so forth. Right? So it's not just necessarily blue. Any object that you can see would be the same.
무슨지 다 잉어서 이중 무슨 들어와 디 신심시배 것이데 이중 무슨 그래 신심시배 것이 다들 간대 용거라도 당보 신에 곰자 말한다 곰자도 이디 때문에 완실을 그러면도 이디 때문에도 당보면서 곰자 말한다 참마 곰자고 당행한서 우중 곰자에 봐 삼바데 잠딩딩 되기도 근데 나와로 지금 샤기도 또 신에게 미국에 또 왜 나와 될 샤기요로 제시도 신에 당보 곰니데 템바데 똑바로 봐 당보 똑바데 아니 갈래 때문에 치 아니 간자함질라 똑바데 이 당보 이르 이 똑바로 또 똑바데 간라 간자 좀 잡야야야야 유디 때문에 아니 유디 세르 쳇지 아니 간자질라 이디게 간자 그 미기 속통하나시 아니 이디게 통도고였다 이디게 미신이 심 통도고요 제가 신세지원 것이 대 영어 차단데 직시나 야보다 이 동매차 그 당보 똑바차 전바로 와 한테 내 검잡 아니 배밍과 주tem버 차도 아니 유딩 그 신지 심 무슨도 신도고요 쟤도 아니 이중 무슨 차다 어두더다
Then the second one, for example, this is a second moment of, so this is the mental direct perceiver. So the second moment of a sense direct perceiver, of a clairvoyance knowing another's mind. So when we talk about a clairvoyance knowing another's mind, this is when somebody's developed mental, like calm abiding or advanced meditation states, they're able to perceive others' minds. So for us, we first, like we start with meditate on the breath or an object like that, and we stabilize the mind. But at this point, we're not perceiving. It's very conceptual, right? It's not direct perception. It's based very much on memory. We're recollecting the object and so forth. But as it becomes clearer and clearer, then at some point when you develop your concentration, you can actually see as if you're seeing with your eyes, right? So at this point, you can see directly, like just we see things with our eyes. And at this point, it becomes non-conceptual. And then it becomes a mental direct perceiver at that point. Yeah, so clairvoyance knowing another's mind. So it's seeing the mind of another being. And the second moment of that is the subsequent cognizer. So it definitely is a knower which realizes its object, but it's not new. Sorry, it's an incontrovertible knower. So it fulfills that part of the definition of a prime cognizer, but it's not a new one. So therefore, it's not a prime cognizer.
Somebody musumdida rari musumwada rari musumdi ani mishi nyamsunyo rari toata rari musum 상마래 rari 상마 샤야는 리고다 게징이 버다네 rari musum 게징이 was.
Right. So the third one, for example, is the second moment of a self-knower. In this case, the second moment of self-knowing direct perceived experiencing in eye consciousness. But actually, it could be any self-knower, but the second moment of a self-knower, any second moment or subsequent moment after that of a self-knower fulfills this category.
다 시버디 네 nenjung musum saade ta thonlam phajemenam rewa
Yeah. So then the fourth one, which is a yogic direct perceiver, it was, for example, the second moment of an uninterrupted path of seeing.
다디네 나와디 뒤에 강으로만 인기 들어와다 무슨 계징이 와라 무슨 계징이 와디 엉외 말에 잉외 말에 라리 말에 내종 무슨 말와 아니 대로 뒤에 시카에 메인이 차송하다.
So then the fifth one is the second moment of direct perceiver. So this is definitely a subsequent cognizer, but it's none of the other four, right? It's not a direct perceiving subsequent cognizer. It's not a mental direct subsequent cognizer. It's not a self-knowing subsequent cognizer. It's not a yogic subsequent cognizer. So, but it's still a subsequent cognizer. So therefore, it goes into this fifth category.
어다 드네다 니와 똑바 데려와 똑바 제시다. 계속 안주 무슨 듯이 그래도 살당에 이 개침부 있냐 양자 랍샤나 디다도 시나 아니 야고열 점에 곰잡이인데 수수심디 가르쳐르고 매 가르쳐하면 싱그러 펜도베 전부여 단다 로릭디 장게 있는 점에 곰자다 수수심로 직기에운데 등무숨 차르고도 제시 차르고도 점마 차르고도 아니 밀레케지 조금만 수수하고 오라.
So it's very beneficial to know all about this prime cognizers, subsequent cognizers, and so forth. Because when you actually start meditating, you start to see your mind and you see the activity of the mind. And you can know immediately, okay, this is a prime cognizer, subsequent cognizer, what kind of category it falls under. So this studying this awareness and knows is very beneficial because then when you experience something in your mind, you can know what it is. You wouldn't have to ask somebody else.
다 똑바 제시에서는 똑바라나 가려고 그래. 다든 디run의 준비 신리 똑바 친이래와. 다든 디run의 준비 신리 다지당 튼지스가 다디사데 포바세 민들와다 민세와 포바세. 전세대 양도 심나로 포바 셔르기도 어디리. 다 디니 데데단지 딘루고 다 똑바 디니 데데단치와. 똑바 디니 베데단지 딘시사 똑바 추시 샤단 딘데로 그 군인이 베다오지 똑바 심날 나한테 요디 문에 그 포바세야 디단 군이 데제 심날 나वे날 데데다 베 똑바를 데데 뭐더라 세상 다든 데르 똑바 거라는 파 믹스 지거 데르 뭐에네도 믹스 지야요 말아
그래 난난저 동
리얼리티를 지야요 말아 그래서 셈게 so 수소 거스나 똑바 소거 다디
so 디 건다 디 톡베
다든 데르도 젬베 신리 다지당 튼지 데르도 젬바 데롱아스도 데롱아스데 데트야요 말고 데롱아스 다든 데르도 젬베 신리 똑바 신리
Dratan. So the definition of this is Dratan Drurunga. So the sound, an other knower with the sound meaning is suitable to be mixed with the object. What does it say there? I haven't got that.
Conceiving determinant of knower, which apprehends the sound generality and the meaning generality as suitable to be mixed.
Okay. Sound and Tanchi to do. Okay.
Does it that?
Good. That's a lot. I might read it out. Is anybody online? No, I'll read it out. Not here. Yeah. So yeah, I think I have it somewhere. Sorry. Yeah, I got it. So a conceiving determinative knower which apprehends a sound and a meaning, sound generality and a meaning generality as suited to be mixed. Yeah. So that's the definition of a conceptual consciousness. Okay,
당연한도 뒤유 되냐냐래다. 당수 도고 제장한테 디니 데르단지 냐냐 수수선나 나오르시 디딩원에레 원에데다 나와디니 데제 두세 제장 똑배게 나디 참만남데게 추주나가 똑배 타와 남세지 sabject 주군와서 똑배 domba 점된데 산제디 똑배 타와들레파 똑배 타와 탐제 세리스 아니난 유튜버 똑배 타와 또디 단다 다지던 튼지디 나와 똑배호랑 요 말바 산제라 똑바로 요 말아 진짜 똑바로 더 난세 진짜 똑바로 더 참마다
Mm.
요 말에서 딱 안줄라 요르다 안줄 요면 똑바로 더 디베디 가서 그래 짜게다 냐도 신야게 차원한 신시 디나라 먼저 찡데 다 똑바로 지상 알아서 두 상단에 레도 다단다 직담블링 세아로당 뉴질랜드 세아당 마레 캉바당 마레 투글로당 아니 두즈 상마 나라게 ngolin 시아디 나라게 똑베날 시아딘 교들 예 나탄다 잠블링지 셰고라 나라게 심날라 똑베날 시아딘 교 잠블링들
Oh, okay.
예 뉴질랜드래 데 나라게 똑베날 시아딘 교 뉴질랜드들 예게 심날라 시아게 뉴질랜드 디 초란서 시아투고 말아
Right.
디 첩잡으시오다다
So, you know, for us, actually, our experience is very much like this. The idea of an object is very much mixed, this kind of meaning and this sound, like they're very much mixed together. It becomes our understanding of objects is very conceptual. It's this kind of mixture of this name and sound and the meaning that we hold for it. Now, for a Buddha, it's not like this. Buddhas, they don't even have the appearance of this kind of mixture of this meaning and the sound thing that we have, right? So therefore they've gone beyond all this non-conceptual stuff. But we're not like that. We're like fish caught in a net. We're caught up in this net of all our conceptuality. In fact, everything, what we experience or what we think of things is just like a conceptual creation. For example, our idea of this world or New Zealand is like what we conceive it to be. Now, what I conceive New Zealand to be and what you conceive, they're quite different, right? Like what I conceive it to be, you can't see that. You can't conceive it in the same way. Or another person can't conceive it in the same way. So it's quite different.
지금 단다 이제 먼저 위견래 치워치고 치림 추고면데 딱다 더요. 먼저 시도도 수수 생류에 차도도 아니 수수 잠블링데 두서 잡더거든. 또 되게 심디게 나오더니 잠블링 라로다. 수수 잠블링 라로다. 심 단단한 심 도버데 파 캡데라. 먼저 심 캡 전부 로도면 더 배나 데베니 주로 메시 단다 수수 로마년벨 롱바도서 심도 도면 당하다.
Oh, okay.
수수가 통신바데 대사로 배나 나탄다 녀탄다 표팅겨라. 녀 표팅해야 돼. 다 로숨주 공 표팅 거랑에 단대 표팅에 텐도고요 말 통고요 말 가도.
Right.
녀 다당 녀 심날 표팅하고 표디 로숨주 공게 표들이다. 직접 저다다.
So, you know, when on the weekend course did the meditation on the death, the stages of the death, and what we did was we did this world dissolution, right? When the world dissolved. And this is true. What we're dissolving is this mental trupa, is like emanate, or maybe you could say elaboration of our, like the world. So we always have this kind of mental elaboration that we create. And when you dissolve that in, as part of this process, it shows that zambalingi trulti kare. Zambalingi kirandi nansa zambaling trulgire.
trulgire.
The zambaling di shirim di trimbe, you know, di zambaling trimbe, you know, dini kare.
zambaling di mewa charo.
Okay, so in this way, you make your own world. What you're dissolving is your own world, your own experience of the world. So, for example, we don't, like our minds, we can't experience a place we haven't been. Like if we haven't been to a country, we can't think of that country. And for example, for myself, you know, when I think of Tibet, this is Tibet 30 years ago. Right? This is not Tibet now. I have no idea what Tibet's like now. I haven't been there, right? But my Tibet is 30 years old, right? So if you think about this, it's quite nice. It's quite beautiful, right? So, you know, like when you actually think about this and that, you actually realize that it's just your creation, your conceptual idea of it. You know, not and when you understand that, it actually becomes kind of nice or beautiful.
아, 접사도 하지. 똑바. 진짜. 다양한데 때서야 똑바로 제와 배나 투모스야지 여러 점블링디 여러 투모 디 점블링디 요레스 근데 투모에 점블링지 요레스로 그냥 야 전부로 시가셔로 야 체스트시나 렐하웨르 투모에 점블링디 미 빌린 두잉이 점블링레스 내가라 다 기단시 미다 냐다한테 소자 망고저라 디얘기다 점블링 레데로 투모에 점블링지 요라다 다드네 마 나랑 투모 마임 바디다 띵아랑 지고르면서 요 말다 디디 쳐와 치앙고야 디디 두개 아니야 그래.
So when you think about this conceptuality, you got to understand that in a way there's like a collective world, or you could say common world, and then there's a individual or unique world. So this collective world is, you know, made up of this physical mass and the 7 billion people and the cats and the dogs and all the other carry-on that goes on, right? So that's what you'd say is the common or the collective world. But then you have your own individual world, right? Like we all each have our own individual worlds, and that's not shared. That's unique to the individual person.
데델 삼단데 다마 충르다 다 포버델 삼다로 포버디 먼저 창매 포버지 요르다네 두모에 포버지 요르 먼저 창매 두모에 포버지 요르 다드네 마시디 땅에 통야게 나 지고 통야 포버디 결혼제 통고요 맞다 어디를 다 제와대체.
So it's the same with any object. Like if you think about this cup as an example. So the cup is there's something we perceive, right? But what we perceive, my perception of the cup and your perception of the cup, now that's quite different. So there's the common cup that we all perceive, but then we have our own individual perceptions of it.
다 단다 강보되는 포버디 포버 구요다.
So in this room, there's actually 9 cups.
포버 찍도 구도다.
So is there 1 cup or 9 cups?
Right,
so it's quite a nice debate. You can Right. So like Sarah, they used to have, I don't know, this idea or this debate, because there's like 4,000 monks, and there's one disciplinarian, but then they used to say that actually there's 4,000 disciplinarians because each monk has their own disciplinarian, right? So then there's 4,000 wandering up and down the. So you say there's one disciplinarian or there's 4,000?
That's the sometimes, that is
So yeah, you know, like you have to think about it, right? You have to kind of.
That talk about it. Do some dana and it talk was a dig Tonda the Sewa singer that do something on the sing talk balajoro. Oh, did Tonda did I was Sewa singer.
So if you think about it in this way, then you can come to understand what this conceptual mind or this conceptualization is. So it's very good very useful to understand this.
Then you were talk about the Layena and then Musum Gitangbe talk about Jeva. So
then when these are divided, there's 2. There's conceptual subsequent cognizers that are induced by direct perceivers and those that are induced by inferential cognizers. So then the first one, for example, is a faculty concordant ascertaining consciousness, ascertaining blue that is induced by a sense direct perceiver apprehending blue. Whew. Oh, factually concordant. What did I say? Anyway, whatever I said, it was wrong. Factual. So anyway, but this means that like it's the conceptual mind that is induced by a direct perceiver apprehending blue. So for example, an eye consciousness apprehending blue, that induces that induced by that, the conceptual consciousness induced by that.
저당도 뒤에 일라거든. 어디 당 무슨 등일라 대 신시티제 되네다. 당 원보지고 말해. 다는 단진이 싫어. 셰딘디 니심나라 셰샤된 조스도. 안데네 로 칼라시 무시 사비네 심나 테네. 어디도 망보여.
So this is not only like sight, it could be sound. You could hear something and then there's a conceptual consciousness about that, or you eat something, you taste something, there's a conceptual consciousness around that. So yeah, there's many of these.
디 디식심이나 단다 진대여와 먼저게 다 당부 로 당부 계윤데 로 당부 계윤데 무슨 기고 무슨 질 때네 기고라
Right.
똑바치 계발라 당부 무슨 질을 때네 기고라 같이 똑바디야 곰잡지냐 똑바디 이지 무슨 걸 봐주로 갖고 어디 당부 무슨데 마 똑바ngol 똑바차송아 다 똑바디 곰잡잡잡지 제메 신에던 드려도도 아니 이기다 통두비야데 차도 이지 무슨 차로요라 단다 빼나간도 어디래 당 무슨 당본 똑바지 양 드네 무슨라 주로가 다디 어디 타도나 당본 무슨로
네
드네 똑바차송아 양 제일 무슨 차로
okay, right. So you know, in the meditate, it's good to know about these things because when we're doing meditation on, say, calm abiding, you can understand that first it's induced by a direct perceiver, right? Then you meditate, and then at this point in the meditation to develop it, then it's conceptual. And then at some point, you go beyond the conceptual, and then you get the mental direct perception again. So you can perceive things directly with the mind. So we have to know this process or this way of development. So when we talk about Arya beings and how they can perceive things directly, well, how is that? You know, we need to know. It's like through this process. Right.
And then Jene poverty midawe that hamutovala de chabare junzeriside and dine togwajero da midawato togwajero da togwacharo da dine gomja and the pagwato to the yidi tonging musum to pabangusum midabangusum to roda cheda ku gyuro de tambo musum di gyund ma do yo 타 당봉 웃음 되네 기거래 타마대 웃음도 저당도 박외주지 남도 웃음 차야다는데 림바데 단다 데 삼무데 시에나 안다 데다 용사래 삼 이질리고 때디 개좀 쇼래 진전자도 안간주줄로 또보냐데 박과단 산제로 웃음 차 한데 차르라데 어디다 로다 림바데 시에나 안에 딱다도 이제 덴볼 차용 거라
So you know, like it starts off with direct perception, as we said, to see things directly. So if we take this impermanence of this cup, the subtle impermanence of the cup, first of all, you have to apprehend the cup to be able to apprehend the impermanence of the cup. So first we apprehend the cup, and of course we perceive that directly. Then when we think about the impermanence, then you do it through reasoning. So at this point it's conceptual. We think about the reasoning, and then we kind of start to understand that the cup is subtly like the subtle impermanence of cup. We start to understand it, and then we meditate it more and more and more and more until at the point, you know, for Arya beings, they directly perceive the impermanence of the cup. So, you know, it starts off in the beginning with a direct perception, and then it ends like the final one is it goes back to a direct perception. So if we understand this process, then it helps us to develop trust or belief. You know, if we know these methods and the way things work.
사진은 시 배나 박배 단다 지당에 연락 시작으로 동반이 다 담행 웃음도 떠셔도 퍼버딩 담행 웃음도 당 퍼버도 오라. 퍼버마도나 퍼버딩 담행 퍼버딩 웃음도 오다. 다야 담에레스 템버마 두어레스 юм젤데네 제와지기도 제와도 떠거라. 다 제와도 거라. 다디 곰자 뒤에 야야야야 세르세르세르 아니 졸람네 곰이 세르세르데 미과데 세르서 뮤디 세르세르 아니 야 퍼버디 담행 웃음 통람 바제멜라 내가래. 양고 담은 웃음도 별로 유도라. 포가 담에도 웃음으로. 디전 통람 바제면 유도라. 어디 다 세부 차도다라. 도 스토단데 딱다야고 도다. 하고세.
디 타면
당부 포가 담에 도베다 디전 통람 바제면 여러 팅 웃음으로. 디도고라 당부 포가 도거래. 포마도는 포가 담에 도고 말아. 포가 담에 계시로 계시. 제주 포가 담에로. 다 포가 미다 본 것은 포가 또 사회 제일. 다 포가 담에 임바데 템바마 투거래지 줌젠데네 다 제바 끼로. 제바 끼운데네 텔레콤자 다 제시차. 제바 기증이원에야 제시차로라. 제시차네 다 텔레콤자 야디 디진 조람 투 조람 내가 곰자 안테네 돈이 무슨 또 돌람 차로다. 양고 당기 똑바디 양 무슨 차서. 어디 디 단델라 계절 딜로고 도단디 셴베이나 먼저 파괴주지 람디 무슨 임바디 야고 죽도다.
So in the Mahayana vehicle, right, or the Mahayana perfection vehicle, it talks about, say, realizing the selflessness of an object. And so first of all, of course, you have to apprehend the objects of the selflessness of cup. For example, you first apprehend the cup itself. Then you start to think about it conceptually and understanding, okay, what is this selflessness or what is this emptiness of this cup? And you kind of get this intellectual understanding. And then that gets clearer and clearer and clearer, and your mind gets more and more developed until at this point where you can actually directly have this realization or this direct perception of the selflessness of the cup. So, if we understand this process of how it works, then this is very beneficial. So is that clear? And then the second one, which is the second, for example, the second moment of an inferential cognizer realizing sound to be impermanent. So it's a subsequent cognizer induced by an inferential cognizer. Okay, so that's enough for subsequent cognizers. Now we're going to move on to correctly assuming consciousness, which is on page 34. So we have the definition and the divisions of this as well. So a conceptually assuming consciousness has to be, a correctly assuming consciousness has to be conceptual. So the definition of factually concordant determinative knower, which is controvertible to regards with determining its object, has to be a conceptual consciousness. Determinative rang yogi shimba. Rangyu la shimba, sorry. Shimba. So, regards to determining its object, Rangyu la shimba. So this determining its object, Rangyu la so di tonda correct? Oh, sorry. Determine here means to apprehend or to grasp its object.
카두라 코고래 산산데 찹도야 된데 요말 카시 찹도를 카시 켜고 말이라 반대 딜로 왔어야 돼 깝딜로 왔어야 돼 아니 마도베트르다 밀루발라나 똑베트르다 먼저 참말라 서도 밀루베리 걸어서 밀루바서야 돼 똑버려 또나 똑바나 지턴 내위자 밀루바스다 깝디 루다 말루서야 돼
Okay, so this controvertible here, Malua yeah, this controvertible kia you could understand in the sense of having, like, sometimes it apprehends aspects, but doesn't necessarily understand the whole picture or pervade the whole thing, right? So this controvertible means to not realize. So incontrovertible means to realize its object, like fully, and then incontrovertible means doesn't fully realize its object.
딱갑디 루버사디 니 이주에디게 마도베 탱게다 징그레스 유디 징그레스 이나코 도구 말레스.
Okay, so then you can say that it like Zen is to hold, or so it maybe it apprehends its object without realizing it. Does that work? Apprehend with no. Well, Zen is to hold, so it holds its object without realizing it. Would be the literal translation.
아니네 심벨루와 시릭 튼주스다 짐바 튼주레. 도구 요마르델레 짐바디 튼다 튼바레스다. 심바디 튼다 튼바레스. 튼다 튼바사데 그 짐바는 시 튼라 내대요. 그래서 왔다.
So what it means is to hold that it's concordant with the meaning, right? Like, so what it holds is concordant with the meaning, but it doesn't realize it.
벤 답베샤다 집에는 세브차로라 질. 나요 텐스 베들라 숨레 나르다. 나도와 뱅나도와.
So then there's 5 examples of this.
베디샤나 세르두레. 방보디 균제메베 이주라도와. 균제메베 이주라데 베나. 담이다고레스 라비나. 먼저 미지가 담이다고레라나. 담이다고레스 짐스나나. 데라 담이다고레라 마시 담이다고 임베 균젠 데레 스켈라마송아 체상고 데르데 가사 균제메베 이주스다.
Okay.
균제 요마르텔레 코이 베나가 레준데 요레스 라마 당아서 버만자데라. 레준데 요레스. 겨왕아지 요레스 이지시고라. 레준데 왜 균제 가래. 겨왕아지 균제 가서나. 하고 마서 멜라메시기도. 균제 미도 아들라.
Right.
어디라고.
Dear, sorry, give me a second. So the first one is a correctly assuming consciousness which does not have a reason. For an example, awareness that apprehends sound, so to be impermanent, and dependence upon the mere word sound is impermanent. So basically, it just believes sound is impermanent. Now we have this, a lot of people might have this, for example, we might believe in past and future lives, we might believe in karma, and say, oh, that's great, but then why? Why do you believe in karma? What's the reasoning? And you say, oh, the Lama says karma exists, so therefore karma exists, right? There's no reason behind it, you just accept it, you just believe it.
미디 가르라와디 아니 징그라. 이지 마제나나 아니 징게 말어. 디나 메나 천선사그라.
So if you believe in the person, then whatever they say you just automatically believe it. But if you don't really trust the person, then you might doubt, is that what they're saying? And then when you have that doubt, if you're not sure, then it's doubt.
다 이지체나 이주지 그래. 다 튼두래.
Right. So if you doubt is when you're not sure, and belief is when you believe that thing.
거기서는 담이다와 레섬 진샤나 이지샤나 여러 담이다. 지만하지 되는 내라. 너 튼두리. 이나 또요 말아. 미지 담이다와 레라나 담이다와 여러서 짐브라 셴브라. 지만하지 되는 내라. 튼다 튼바라. 이나 또르베스나 또요 말아.
So you can say that if somebody, like, if you just believe, or somebody says sounds impermanent and you just believe it, then it's concordant with the meaning, because sound actually is impermanent, but you haven't actually realized that sound is impermanent.
다 균젠다 개외 이주스랍디. 베나타 미지 담이다 그레스. 균젠 그레스나. 제주니 도레스. 딱 버레스라나. 균제 계속. 이나 담이다 그레스나. 그 진데나 담이다 그레다라고.
Right.
어디래?
So then the second one is a correctly assuming consciousness with having a contradictory reason. So this, for example, is believing sound to be impermanent because it's unable to perform a function. So if something's unable to perform a function, it means that it's permanent. So your logic is fundamentally flawed, but still it's concordant with the meaning. So
어디 근데 뭔가 요래 김제 매잖아요. 수수 유지 채나 김제 따다마 되나네.
Yeah.
아, 근데 먼저 철람이 가시. 근데도 가시 그 직단다 하고 이제 야페 마페 식도로. 이나 년년에도 유지 채 년대. 근데 등사 타자다. 근데 미가시 온라인 코스 제. 아니 밀 라비알 가오다. 먼저 다디 눕졸라디 시라치 축첨부레도 온라인 코스 온라인 마스터 코치 베이직 제 마스터 제 아니 리트리치 지도에서 엔 람사 밀레 랍고도 제메 칙든데 데셰geb디 칙 데셰 노르제geb도 이나데 녜녜드 이지치고라 어디에다 준세데 게베 이제디 요라고로 건들.
So, we experience this kind of thing a lot. Like people might have a lot of trust in the person, and even if what they're saying is not correct, they just believe what they say because they haven't really learned for themselves or haven't studied much themselves. Like these days you have a lot of people who might have completed some online course, right? And they've got some certificate for doing some online course, but then when they come to explain things, they actually explain it wrong or make mistakes. But if the people who listen to them, if they don't know any better, they'll just believe what they say.
The mil lavia lelhawi omara manzo na lo ni shi tsani tsasum jela mi shi lapchugo omara.
The companang.
Kombala ina tinde khawaya online yin shu di khawala pujo.
So in the monastery you study for 20-25 years before you're actually able to teach others. Right, so there's no chance just to get an online course and be a teacher.
One time, I told you a story. One Western man in Dharamsala, and this man, Jume teacher, he teach me Saint Mandela, and he told a story. And he was sick. He went in Dharamsala, and then and he went in some tea. There was outside the tea shop, on the table, and he's doing that. And one Western man comes. Oh, Lama, oh yeah, the Namje Monastery teaching Saint Mandela. Well, he said, "Do you know Saint Mandela?" He said, "A little bit know." He said, "A little bit know." Oh, well, tomorrow we go the Namje Monastery teaching Saint Mandela. He said, "No, I can't go. I'm too sick." And then 1 month later, he's again coming. Oh, if you want to learn something, I teach you. Okay, how can I teach you? Please teach me. And then, after the conversation, Namje Monastery, Saint Mandela teacher coming, and he said, "My teacher is he's my teacher." This Western said, "Oh, he's your teacher." He's Yumetandri teacher, this Saint Mandela teacher. Yeah. He said, he face become right. And one time, in Korea, South Korea monk live in Daewoo Monastery, and that time we went to Gilo exam in Kishing on Sanje. He's student. He teach every day. Morning 1 hour, evening 2 hour, every day 2 hour teaching Lamrim. 1 year he did start Lamrim, 1 year. After 1 year, and he translated Lamrim Tibet to Korean language translator. So upset. His motivation is not good Dharma practice. He said, "Don't go away, go away." He's a very direct person, Kishing Sanje. Say, you don't know, we stay 15-20 years, we still don't know this Lamrim words. How do you know 1 year, one day they're both active? And he said, I know. He said, I know. And he said, you go away. Then he come in Dharamsala, and he asked Dalai Lama, please. Oh, Kishing Sanje said, if you want translator, then you ask Dalai Lama. And he went to Dalai Lama. He met Dalai Lama. He said, please give me permission. I want to translate Lamrim to Korea. My teacher did not give. He is a very honest person. He said, my teacher not give me permission. My teacher upset. I was in Dalana. How long you did study Lamring? He said 1 year. Don't do that. No, but do you start again? 10 years you do. After 10 years, then you coming back. He said, ooh. He said, so long. Too long, he said. I met him. And later, then he didn't do translator. There's no publishing. Not give permission. No one give permission. Permission, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I met this Korean man quite often. And he gave lots of Korean tea and sometimes the seafood, you know. He give lots of seafood, you know. Soup. Sometimes Korean. He likes cooking. And one time I went down Delhi, waiting there for search. Our comes in some visa, some 12 month visa etiquette. And then he was there, and then the Korean embassy invited him for lunch, and he said, "You want to come to Korean food?" And we went there. Wow, the Korean food. I never had this small. Maybe 20, isn't it? Small. One finish, another one finish. I thought, wow, this is too small. How to stomach full? They bring again. Lots. They go. Finally, more delicious come later. And he said, you eat all, don't eat all. Just a little bit eat, leave that these other people eating. He said, delicious come later, you know. Before bring rice, some little bit. Then later, more delicious. Stomach so full. So there lots delicious coming. Funny experience. He's the Tibetan language speech is very good. A lot of Korean people learning Tibetan language in Dharamsala, isn't it?
Yeah, few.
Yeah.
Yeah, I studied with a couple.
And Philippa, do you remember we went the Lamrim teaching and the Korean two nuns reading Tibetan text, isn't it? Listening to Eric Dalai Lama's teaching Eric Tibetan. A lot of people to study. I think this lots of young people come, isn't it? Korean young people.
Yeah, few.
Yeah.
Not like a lot, but few. I think there was
Yeah.
2 Koreans.
No,
on my course.
it comes in.
maybe
There are
8
maybe
people.
5 or 6, and then lots of monk here already, and lay people. Some Sarah, yeah, Sarah. Dharamsala they once Sigur.
Sarah College.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a couple of Koreans in Nama Buddha as well that were studying.
Namu Buddha.
Yeah, with me. So.
My friend, he has 2 Korean students, and one is very high army.
Like a general.
Makbun
Yeah,
Tombo.
yeah, like
Captain. More.
Yeah, general.
Officer.
Officer. Okay, officer. Yeah.
Officer. And he said he lots. And he show photo. Very. And then he did later he lived all behind. He become monk. He do lots frustration. Morning 4 o'clock get up 2 hours every morning to frustration. He's very nice man. Where's come from this topic? 균제 당 개베 이준일래 따로와.
Yeah. So now that's the Goa like opposite reasoning, opposing reasoning.
나 이지 제나야 상상을 편토부터 상상을 년가 여러 왔다. 먼저 최 냠련 제대 당불남사 이제 마시나 야고요 원해시나. 이제 마체체 다제 제 두어제 이제 제나 년가 사우러 가 먼저. 그래서 나 최디 먼저 딜롭젠데 무슨 셈 교다야 달랑래. 이제 제나 아니 데데데로 제라 딘노디에는 항상 돼야 된다. 될 당문에 텐좀 간을 샤위나. 이남 매남 아니 준전티는 가르쳐내래스 셴이들 이 가르쳐내래서 망보 랍tum나 야보다 아니
So,
세우자
yeah, so sometimes believing things sometimes is good, sometimes it's not so good, like, and if we're studying Dharma in the beginning, it's not good to just believe what we hear, because the purpose of the Dharma is to change your mind. And if you just believe it, then, later you might come to a few surprises or shocks, but if you have in the beginning, if you really check it, like you have doubt, is it like this, is it right, why is it like this, really ask for the reasons, this is often a better way of thinking.
다드네 숨바디 이제 망해와다 이제 망해와디래다 이제 망해와게 시제에 메실라디 코카고요 로 베나 미지어로 데 미지어로 미디 데레스 가서 뉴질랜드에서 뉴질랜드에서 뉴질랜드에 베균제데 미레스 라비나
Oh, okay.
아니 미나 뉴질랜드 영어 말아봤다
Right. So then the third one is a correctly assuming consciousness for which the reason is not ascertained. Okay, and then the example gives is a bit more tricky, but for us, we can use the example of this person's from New Zealand. Why? Because they're a person, right? So that's not necessarily, if you're a person, you don't have to be from New Zealand. So the reason is not concordant. Is that clear? Like, is it clear why it's different from the reason being opposite? Okay, cool.
딜랍도 텐준유동 있다. 시제 달러 담이다 왔다. 마페 탄달람나 담이다 그래스. 시제스디 템에 또 버쳐래. 템에 또 버쳐이나 담이다 왜 메창 말아왔다.
Okay, so the example here is going on to why sound is impermanent, because it's an object of comprehension. So, object of apprehension. So this is not suitable because it's not determinative proof. It doesn't mean, if it's an object of comprehension, it doesn't necessarily have to be impermanent. So, for those not familiar, this object of comprehension is a synonym with phenomena. So if it's a phenomena, it doesn't have to be permanent. Is that clear?
Clear?
This shecha, object of knowledge or object of comprehension, as he translates it here, is so the object apprehended by a prime cognizer or a valid cognizer. So this, if it's that's synonymous with phenomena. So if it is that object of knowledge, or if it's a phenomena, it doesn't necessarily have to be impermanent. So this object of knowledge include permanent phenomena. They're objects of apprehension by valid cognition. So why, it's like saying, well, why is it a cup? Because it's impermanent. But that, there's many other impermanent phenomena that aren't cups. So it doesn't pervade. There's no, it's not opposite, but it doesn't pervade. Right. So then the other one is, it's a correctly assumed consciousness, but the reason is not established. So in this example, it goes, an awareness which apprehends sound to be impermanent from the sign of being an object of apprehension by the eye consciousness. So obviously sound is not an object of apprehension by the eye consciousness. So it's, even though the reasoning is valid, it's not concordant. Does that clear? So because it's factually concordant, like sound is impermanent, then it becomes a belief, becomes a belief. But because the reason is not valid, the reasoning is not valid, it doesn't become like a realization or an understanding.
다들 내 균제 망해 봤어야 되와. 가서 균제 유전 된라 마 봐서 되다. 마와 들어와. 다마티 균제 유전 된라 마 봐서. 뭐나? 와 균제 유전 된라 마 와서는 배나 다쳐봐단 전에 대회 저 저와 체매 망해 버려서 제외달을 담에다 보면 별로들. 알레. 다 미지게 당연히 도스를 다디 테스트 다디 랍된 다다 랍된 포바데 랍시로. 포바디 제와 임바 먹고 제와. 제와 임바 하고 그요 말이에요. 제와이나 미다고 임바대 하고 그요 말이에요.
제와 임바 하고 말이에요.
포바디 제와 임바 하고 말이에요. 포바디.
네네네.
제와이나 미다고 임고래서 뒤에 또 그요 말다. 또 두고요. 근데 다 근데 달에다 포바디 아니 미다고 레스. 맨 제와 레스 라비나 다 균제 요래와 제와이나 미다고 임고래들래 가상 거라게 균제도 땡라 팝 두고요 말다.
Okay.
균제다 요래 쟤는 미다고 쳐요. 이나 가상 거라게 이배 딱다직 땡겨서 두고요 말이에요. 균제 요래.
So then the last one, or fifth one, correctly assuming consciousness which the reason exists but is not settled, and this is a long one. So for example, an awareness which apprehends sound to be impermanent from the sign of being a product, without it having been ascertained by a prime cognition that sound is a product and whatever is a product must be impermanent. Okay, so using the example of the cup. So we say it believes the cup to be impermanent. And the reasoning is right. The cup is impermanent because it's a product, understands that as well. However, hasn't clearly understood that the cup is a product and hasn't also clearly understood that whatever is a product is necessarily impermanent. So everything's right, correct, but it hasn't settled. Like he hasn't really understood. The person hasn't understood all the aspects. So hasn't understood that fully that the cup is a product and whatever is a product is impermanent, but still believes the cup to be impermanent. So it's having all the reason there without understanding it, without settling it, and then you can't have the realization or the understanding without that.
어들 다디 이중아지 뒤에 정말 똑바래도 알아. 똑바래도 알아. 무슨 면도야? 디세브 차서.
So you can see these five, they're all conceptual. None of them are direct. So none of them are non-conceptual.
좋아.
Any questions? Of what?
Object of comprehension and object of apprehension.
Where does it say comprehension?
Example number 3 on the correctly assuming.
It is. Yeah,
comprehension is not necessarily impermanent. And then on the fourth example, it says an awareness that apprehends.
Comprehension. Let me just read it because
Object of apprehension.
I'm going to have to try and think what Tibetan he's translated here. Because of being an object of comprehension is reason. Oh, okay. So So what's the difference between object of comprehension and object of apprehension? So the shecha object of apprehension. Zinpe yul di kepa kariyo. Kansene di gyo di nang la object of comprehension di shecha re, right? Yeah. Any the object of apprehension di zinpe yul. So di pena di pedi nang la di sumba di because of so di cheche yina mitak pe yimbe makya bro di and the fourth one the shipa nang la the is it eye conscious is the reason that this is true the mixing zongcha right so the zongcha tan shecha dini kepakare
송자 단 shecha
yeah
어디 좋아요 다 sheja라 디 체매 sheja로
okay apprehended so when we say object of comprehension it's it's apprehended by valid cognition, because this object of knowledge is more common translation, and the definition of that semetokvachala is that which is suitable to be realized by valid cognition.
미시기 숭자사의 쉐바디게 숭야게 들바다. 미시 숭자이나 인지민지게 요거자 아이나 강공부 숭야요래와 강공부 숭야요래 다원이 숭야요래.
Okay.
미시 숭자 차기지라.
So this apprehended here, and in this case by an eye consciousness, doesn't necessarily have to be an object of knowledge or existent, because you can apprehend a blue snow mountain or you can apprehend two moons.
다야.
apprehend.
사실 십자체래 미시 숭나 미시 숭자에 맞잖아 디고. 라. 미시기 숭나 미시 숭자에 맞잖아. 아니 미시기 숭자다 미시기 세메셰자 지고 권한이 디고 어디네.
미시기 숭자탕
미시기 세자 미시기 여러.
So the
미시기 숭자사데 미시 또 말해. 나 두슬랍시다. 미시 숭자에나 이지미지 미시기 또 말해.
okay.
세자사데 세메셰자사데 이지미지 세메 또 그래. 다디 쳐가지고 하다.
Okay, so if you have this object of apprehension by an eye consciousness, it doesn't actually have to realize that object, but if it's a object of comprehension, it necessarily has to be realized by this valid cognition.
미시 숭자 수기 지직 신이로 제가 알레 다들 미시 숭자 수기 지직 신이 제가 미시 숭자라 수기 지직 미시 최신다도 도움으로.
So if you say this Mikshigi Zungcha, the object of apprehension by eye consciousness, that's a subdivision of form, so therefore it has to be form. It can't be outside of this. And this object of knowledge, or this object of comprehension, provides much more. So all phenomena is an object of knowledge, but all phenomena is not an object of apprehension by an eye consciousness. Is that clear?
Okay, now we stop here. Huh?
Do you want to send it out? I'll read it, but conceptual consciousness is the Toko you'd send you. Yeah, you can just send this whole thing. Do you have a digital copy of this? Okay, I'll read it anyway. A conceiving determinative knower which apprehends a sound generality and a meaning generality as suitable to be mixed. That's, yeah, it's a little tricky, that definition.
Okay, let's stop here.
Jetsun la me kutse repten ching nam kachin le cho ge patan lo sang ten pe jo me sa sun gi jo we mun sa tak tu ne gyu chi idam guru ratna mandala kam niryatayami. Due to the merit of these virtuous sections, may I quickly attain the state of the Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Whatever slight positive potential I may have created, by paying homage, offering and acknowledging my faults, rejoicing and requesting that the Buddhas stay and teach, I now dedicate all this for full awakening. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by the victorious ones thus gone of the 3 times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva's deeds. May the King of Dharma, Tsongkhapa's way of Dharma practice flourish. May the omens of obstacles be pacified and all the conducive circumstances be complete. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Saviour of the snowland teachings and transmigratory beings, who makes extremely clear the path that is unification of emptiness and compassion, to the lotus holder Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. You who uphold the subduous moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Saviour of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. By relying on the two accumulations of myself and others in the three times, may the teachings of the conqueror Losang Dragpa blaze for a long time.